All right, guys, this is Mr. Puebla. We will be going over, think of this like a quadratics review. Okay, that's exactly what this is, actually. This is more like a quadratics review, and more or less, or likely, I'm making you do this because you're probably struggling with the quadratics chapter that we just did, which is chapter 9. Or you did poorly on the test, which again means you probably struggled with chapter 9. So we're going to go over the test that you guys just finished taking. Okay, I would probably do these problems on a separate sheet of paper unless I give you your own extra copy to do them on again. Okay, we're going to get going with the first thing here that we have. How many solutions does each equation have? Now, on a state test, they're going to generally ask you, and they're going to give you like one of these equations. For example, this is a quadratic equation because it has a power of 2. But they'll give this to you and they'll ask you, how many solutions does it have? And it'll say like 1 solution, 2 solutions, no solutions, or many, because they'll try to maybe try to trick you. So to figure out how many solutions an equation has, remember we're going to use something called the discriminant. This little fancy word here, which is basically the stuff inside the square root of the quadratic formula. So that's b squared minus 4ac, remember, okay? Now one little extra thing here for the discriminant, which is what we're going to use, which tells us how many answers this has, is that you have to remember that the a, the b, and the c have to be in a certain order, okay? And that order looks like this. Okay, always the a has to go first, so make sure it gets placed first, and the a is always the one that's next to the x squared. Okay, that's the a. Then you have b, which is always placed next to the single x, and then you have c, which is the number by itself with which no x next to it. All right. Now looking at this, look up here. Is this in that same order? Let me go ahead and drag this over there so you can see, and you tell me if it is. Is the a first next to the x squared? Yes, it is. Is the b right there next to the x? Yes. Is the c alone right here by itself? Yes, in that order. So a, b, c. These are in the exact order that I need them, and therefore I can easily use them right away, okay? So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to figure out what a, b, and c is. And I just showed you. A is 2, b is 12, c is 18. Now what I'm going to do is plug them in, plug these numbers in, into the discriminant right there. Okay, we're going to plug these numbers in. So we got b squared minus 4ac. Well, the b is 12, so I'm going to put 12 in parentheses. I'm going to use parentheses here. Minus 4 times a is 2, and c is 18. And there we go. Okay. 12 squared. 12 squared is what? 12 times 12? 144. Minus, let's see, we have 4 times 2 is 8. So we got 8 times an 18, and 8 times 18 actually ends up being 144. Minus 144 equals 0. Okay, now what on earth does this mean? What on earth does a 0 mean? This is something that I taught you in the lesson. If you figure out the discriminant and it ends up being the number 0, that number 0 means that there is one solution. You want a nice little trick, easy way to remember that this is one solution? The number 0 looks like the letter O, like 1. Okay, that's one way to remember it. Okay, that's one solution. That means that if I was to solve this thing using the quadratic formula, I would only get one answer. That's all it means. Okay, let's look at the other one over here. Okay, remember I told you that they have to be in this special order. A goes first, B is second, C is last. Well, you tell me if that's how they look here. Okay, let's look at it real quickly. Is the x squared part first? No, it's not. Is the middle part the x only, or the x part here? Nope. And is the single number at the end part? No, it's not. Everything is jumbled up. So we need to move things around. I need you to put this x squared part first, and then I need you to put this negative 8x part second, and then I need you to put this plus 1 part last. That's the first thing we need to do here. Let me just move them around. Okay, I moved everything around now. Let me move this out of the way. Oh, sorry about that. Let me move this out of the way too. This is kind of like getting in the way here. Oh, not what I wanted. There we go. I'm going to move it down here, okay? All right, now we can figure out what A, B, and C is. So over here on my side, I'm going to write A equals, oh, what's A? A is a negative 1. Look, it's right in front of the x squared. That's a negative 1. B is negative 8. C is a 1. Okay, now we can figure it out. I'm going to write it over here. B squared minus 4AC. I'm going to use parentheses when I plug in. Parentheses. What's B? Negative 8. Squared minus 4. Parentheses. What is A? Negative 1. What's B? Negative 8. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want B, right? I want the letter C, which is 1. I apologize. Okay, let's solve this. 64. Okay, now look at this right here. I have, let me move my hand. I think of it like this. Negative 4 times negative 1. What is that? Hope you're thinking it's positive 4, because it is. So now I got positive 4 right here times 1. Well, it's positive 4. You should have had 68. And I don't know if you remember from the lesson that I told you, whenever you have the lesson, in the lesson I told you, whenever you have a positive number left over when you do the discriminant, this means there are 2 solutions. Okay, so that should have been written on your test. 2 solutions. Over here, 1 solution because it was a 0, remember? And I told you to remember that, like 0 looks like the letter O, like 1. That's a good way. I just actually came up with it right now. As simple as it is, that's one way to remember that, okay? That's it for the first one. Next one. I'm going to try and go a little faster. I'm sorry here, guys. Solve by factoring. Okay, so let me rewrite it over here. Let me get a little handout here. Okay. So now we have this problem here, and I want you to solve by factoring. And when I say factoring, I mean you're going to use the x or you're going to use the x box for this, okay, to do the factors. Now, looking at this problem right here that we have, I'm going to tell you right now that this is not ready to be factored. Because when we factor a problem, your problem has to look like this, for example. Watch. Look down here that I'm doing. I'm going to write down a problem. Let me see if I can come up with one off the top of my head. Okay, what do you notice about this problem and this problem? And hopefully you say, well, Mr. Puebla, all the numbers are not on the same side like this one is. See how this one, only these 2 things are on the same side, and this one's on the other side over here, the equal sign? So I can't use this yet. It has to look like this over here almost, okay? And so to get everything in this nice little order, and also remember, look at this thing too. Look at the order that I put stuff in. I put stuff in the same order that I told you that I wanted the A, the B, and the C to be in, okay? So make sure that's also in the same order as well. You do not want to jumble these up. Like, you do not want to put the C right here in the middle and the BX right here at the end. That's not going to work. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's move the 7x to the other side first. I'm going to do something wrong on purpose. I probably shouldn't have told you. But what did I do wrong? Hopefully you said, wait, Mr. Puebla, this does not match what you just told us. I did not put the x part in the middle like you told me to. I have to put the x part in the middle and the 30, the single number, over here. So let's rearrange it then. X, let me write it, I'm sorry. X squared minus 7x minus 30 equals 0. Okay, now we're ready to go. I told you to solve this by factoring, so you should be doing the letter x, the big X, I'm sorry, not letter x, the x factor. I'm going to use a negative 30 on top and a negative 7 on the bottom. And now remember what 2 factors work here? Negative 10 and positive 7. Those 2 work. Let's actually, no, why did I put 7? Oh my gosh, I'm thinking wrong here, I'm sorry. Positive 3. Okay, those 2 factors work. So now I'm going to write my 2 answers. x minus 10 and x plus 3 equals 0. Now one real quick review here. Remember, this number times this number has to give you this top one, and this number plus this number has to give you this one. And it does. Negative 10 plus 3 is negative 7, and negative 10 times positive 3 is negative 30. So that works. Now if you left your answer like this, sometimes on a state test, this is all they want. They just want to know what the factors are. So sometimes they'll just give you choices like this. They'll say, oh, which one of these is the answer? And they'll say, is it x minus 10? Is that one of the factors? Or is x plus 9 one of the factors? Or, you know, and they'll do it this way. Or is x plus, minus 3 one of the factors? And maybe that's all you'll have to do. And that's great. Here on the test, though, I wanted you to solve it all the way. I wanted you to give me the actual two answers. And so the next step would be to solve each one equal to 0. You're going to use that 0 property. Solve it. Plus 10 plus 10. This one's going to be 10. Oh, barely fits. Minus 3 minus 3. This one's going to be x equals negative 3. So there are your two answers. Your two answers are 10 and negative 3. Okay, done. If you need to see it again, rewind it, watch it again. Maybe now you're not writing anything and you just want to stare at it and look at it and try and get it. Perfect, do that. We're going to solve completing the square now. Remember, completing the square is going to use this little fancy tool that I told you to remember. Remember, I told you to chop it in half and then do power of 2, square it. Remember that? That's what we got to do. So here's what we're going to do. I kept seeing a lot of you trying to move the 24 back over here to this side, and I don't want to bring it over here. You do not want to move it over here. That is the no-no. You do not want to do that. Do not bring the 24 over to this side. Remember, the whole idea behind completing the square is so that you make your own perfect trinomial over here that factors nicely. So you're going to put your own number here. Do not put this one here. Now, what if I had given you the problem like this? And I told you to complete the square. Well, then you would have moved this one over here so that you had a nice little space here to put your own number, okay? But because I already gave it to you like this, you don't need to do that. You don't need to bring it back over here. Remember, we only bring it back over here when we're going to use the x or the x box, right? We do that when we have to do the factor that way. But when something's asking you, oh, complete the square, or what number do you add here to complete the square to both sides, then you keep that number where it's at. Now, remember, to complete the square, we take this one, cut it in half. Remember, we're using this. Cut it in half, and then power to it. So take this, cut it in half, that's 5, and then square it, that's 25. So whatever you put there, you got to put over here also. Now guess what you just created right here? You created a nice, beautiful little factored trinomial there. I'm going to do an x for that. Some of you can do that part in your head, and I hope you can. That's 5 and 5. So because it's the same factor, I'm going to write it only once. A lot of you did really good on this part. I'm going to add the two numbers there, 49. Now the next step is I'm going to do square root both sides. Square root, square root. Remember when you do square roots, well, these square root's going to cancel with that power of 2. And over here, the square root of 49 is going to be a plus and a minus. Remember that. Plus and minus 7, or minus 7, I'm sorry, equals x plus 5. Remember that power of 2 and the square root cancel out. Now we write two problems. Let me get that out of the way. Write two problems. One's going to be x plus 5 equals positive 7, and the other one's going to be x plus 5 equals, oh, that's a 5. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a number in my head already. X plus 5 equals negative 7. Solve each one. Minus 5, minus 5. X equals a 2, or x equals negative 12. Done. Again, if you need to watch it again, please. Rewind it and watch it. That's simple. Quadratic formula. We've been doing these since the beginning of dawn. The dawn of time, I should say. So there's no reason why you should not know how to do this one. Is everything in that order that I told you that I love to have everything in that particular order? Is the C for last, is the B in the middle, and the C at the beginning? Yes, it is. So A is 2, B is 3, C is -5. Now we're going to plug it in. Quadratic formula is x equals -b plus or minus the square root, remember that, of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's your formula. Now I'm going to plug them in. Well, the first part is x equals -b, negative, what's b? B is a 3. I'm going to put it in parentheses, okay? Plus or minus the square root, and b again is 3, put it in parentheses, squared. I like to put everything in parentheses. Some of you guys don't, and that's where you mess up with your signs. And I'm just plugging stuff in here right now. -5, there you go. All over 2a. I don't know how many of you guys, so many of you forgot to put that 2a on the bottom. Okay, I'm going to finish solving this. -3 plus or minus. Okay, let's see. I got 3 times 3. Oh, where did I put my hand? Let me take out my hand real quick, guys. Move this out of the way. Okay, -4 times 2 is -8. Actually, let me put the 9 here first. -4 times 2 is -8. -8 times -5. What's that? Positive 40. Okay, let's move on. All over 4. Okay, I'm going to try and make some room here, otherwise I'm going to run out of room, actually. Let me see what else I can get here. -3 plus or minus, well, it's going to be square root of 49. All over 4. Square root of 49 is what? 7. -3 plus or minus 7 all over 4. Do the two problems. So many of you guys messed up here. You put just a 10. Let me do the plus first. -3 plus 7 over 4. That's going to be 4 over 4, which is 1. Next one. -3 minus 7 over 4. Do the do. Don't change. Opposite, opposite. That's -10 over 4. A lot of you left the answer like this. Reduce it, please. -5 over 2. Okay, there's your answer. And we're done. Need to see it again? Pause it or rewind it. You guys know the drill. Okay, the last one we're going to do here is graphing. Okay, to graph this. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, guys, last question here. This is graphing. Now, remember I gave you a really brief introduction about graphing quadratic problems on the state test. Usually what they'll have you do is they'll give you 4 graphs, and you basically have to kind of match it up with it, right? And a really easy way to eliminate usually like a quick way to eliminate 2 answers right away is by knowing whether it opens up or does it open down. And if you remember from the lesson, I did tell you that it's the number that's in front of this x squared that determines whether it opens up or down. If it's positive, then it opens up. If there was like a negative number right here, like a -3 or 4 or -1 or -x or a -20, then it opens down. That's one big clue. Okay, so this is going to be up. Now we're going to do graphing. We're actually going to graph this thing, okay? Because I told you can actually graph these, and there's many ways to graph them. You can find the vertex and you can find the axis of symmetry and all that other stuff. But you know, the one way that usually is pretty reliable, I told you, is to use a table. We're going to use a table here for this. Okay, so we're going to do one at a time. I'm going to pick some values that are negatives and positives that are small also. Now, this doesn't always work, but usually it does for the type of problems that a test will generally give you. We're going to stick with these numbers right here. Now here's the first one I want to do. I'm going to start off with -2. So I'm going to plug in. All I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in -2 wherever I see the x, right here and right here. That's all you're doing. So let's try that. Y equals parentheses, -2. I like to use parentheses, I told you, so you better be using them too. plus 1. Okay, now we're going to work it out. What's negative 2 times negative 2? Positive 4 plus, or maybe I should write it differently. Let me see. What's 2 times negative 2? That's negative 4 plus 1. What's 4 minus 4? 0 plus 1, 1. There we go. Got that one done. Okay, copy that down. Pause it if you need it. I'm going to erase it because I need room, okay? Next one. Negative 1. Y equals, parentheses, negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 plus 1. Okay, what is negative 1 times negative 1? That is a 1. Plus, what's 2 times negative 1? Negative 2 plus 1. Okay, we got all that in place. Now what? What's 1 plus negative 2? Negative 1 plus 1, 0. Okay, that one's done. Copy the work, unless you're doing it on your own at your own pace. I'm erasing it again. Okay, next one. Put a 0 in. This is the easiest one. Y equals 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 1. That's 0 plus 0 plus 1. I get 1. Okay, next one is put a 1. Y equals 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1. That's going to be 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4. Okay, I have a ton of points already. You know what I'm going to do actually? Well, let's go ahead and start graphing some of these. I don't know how many of you guys, but there's so many that forgot how to graph apparently, and we're going to need to do some intervention with graphing. Sadly, but we have to. Okay, real quickly, when we're doing graphing, the first point I have over here is negative 2 comma 1. Okay, remember, this 2 tells you where to go on the x-axis. The 1 tells you where to go on the y-axis, going up or down. So I'm going to go negative 2 on the x, negative 2. I don't put a point right there. Now you go up 1, right there. Done. Next point, negative 1, 0. That means I'm going to go negative 1 on the x going this way, and then 0 going up or down. So I'm going to go negative 1, and then 0. Oh, I'm already at 0, so that's the point right there. Next point that I have is 0 comma 1. Wow, what does that mean? That means I'm going to go 0 this way, and I'm going to go 1 this way. 0 this way, well there I am, and up 1. Now I have 1, 4. That means I'm going to go 1 this way and 4 this way. So 1 this way and up 4. Okay, what do you notice? I hope you notice that a parabola goes kind of like this, look, and then it curves back up. And so guess what? I'm not even going to do this, the one at negative 3, because this one right here, the one that's going to be right there, it's actually the same distance from the middle of the parabola, which is here's the middle. Here's the axis of symmetry. So from here, if this is 1, 2, then from here this should go 1, 2 right there also. There's that point. And then you can graph your line. Okay, that's the graph. And we are done. If you need to review it, watch it again. If not, then hopefully this helped clarify a little bit. You guys will see a lot of this stuff on the state test. They love giving you a lot of quadratic problems, okay? Especially quadratic formula. And you'll probably see like 2 or 3 of these questions right here. And you'll probably see about 3 or 2 questions of this. And you'll probably see about 2 questions on this. That's a lot of questions, okay? I don't even know how many, but you'll see plenty, okay? I'm telling you right now, it's one of those standards that shows up everywhere. Okay, that's it, guys. Hopefully this helped.